of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, adjustments to the agenda. We do have a couple of adjustments. Under presentations, we're gonna have police chief talk to us and present to us. And also, after the regular select board meeting, we'll be going to have a board of assessors meeting. At that time, we have an executive session for board of assessors, as well as a executive session 405-6F for the discussion of a Philbrook fund application. And after that, we'll vote on that. We'll go back to vote.
Do you mind if we add one more item?
Nope.
Take about 2 seconds.
Okay.
The MRC is asking us to vote on their slate of
Oh, that's right, yeah.
board of directors.
And that would be new business,
Yes, yeah,
10.5.
Yep.
MRC. Anything else? Okay. Public hearing, none. Presentations. The Honorable Chief John Lash.
Honorable, but
Yeah.
this is completely not work related, so I apologize if I'm wasting your time. However, Julie had asked me to speak a little bit on a mission trip I just did down in Tennessee, Western North Carolina. And I was a little hesitant at first because it's about the people, it's not about me and what I did. So I want to preface that. I don't want to toot my own horn here. I want to hear a lot of good people from, actually, the ministry we went with, there was someone from all the lower 48 states within that 3-week time span. So I thought that was pretty cool. Like when we were down there, there's guys from Upper Peninsula, Michigan who drove just as far as we did to get there. So like I said, it's not about me, it's about those people down there that needed help. It was a good opportunity, and I feel like I owe it to Julie because I came to her and, hey, by the way, I'd like to go to Tennessee next week. And I had to drop everything and we went. So the gist of what we did, there were so many volunteer groups down there. We just picked one. And the one we ended up picking was Grindstone Ministries. They have a disaster relief, and then they have another thing that deals with human trafficking. We went to the disaster relief side, and we signed up to be on a chainsaw team. Like, we're from Maine, we can run chainsaws. It was either that or sign up for medical stuff, and I didn't want to do that. So signed up on a chainsaw team and didn't really know what to expect. But our church is really generous. They donated a lot of money for us to go buy supplies to bring down to them. We had called ahead and asked them what they needed, what they saw. You know, a lot of people are still living in tents because they lost everything. It's terrible. So we picked up a bunch of buddy heaters. We picked up some generators, boots, winter clothing. We had a 16-foot enclosed trailer of donations that we towed down with us. When we got to the base that they were using, which was a Baptist church down there, they were very organized. They had Connex boxes. We unloaded, everything went to a certain place, and it was basically like Walmart for the Appalachians, but you didn't have to pay. You just came in and you shopped and you went out. They vetted them because, of course, there's always people that take advantage and, you know, hey, weren't you just here yesterday for a generator? Maybe you skip you today. But it was very well run. For as much chaos as there was, it was very well run. I learned a lot of things about disaster relief, and I think we could do better up here. So that was cool. So yep, we went down, signed up for chainsaw team. We thought we'd be seeing a lot of the people. We thought we'd be talking to a lot of the people down there. Nope, we weren't. We got up in the morning. We had a job to do. You left it dark, you got back at dark. And we ran chainsaws all day. And let me tell you, the hills of Appalachia, no joke. I mean, it was like hiking mountain with a chainsaw. It was work. So the first job we did was for a farmer who, and he had 20 acres of fence and his cows kept getting out. And this old timer, the first day we arrived, he was in tears. He's like, I'm just going to sell my cattle. I've been doing this for 70 years. But he says, I can't rebuild. I can't fix after all this. And by the time 20 of us One started on one side of the fence, one started the other, and we met in the middle. And by the time the 2 days were up, we had cleared 20 acres of fence. And the guy was gonna keep his cattle at the end of the 2 days, so that was a win. Another job we did was, so something I realized down there is we look at a piece of country and we'll be like, don't think we can build anything up there. They look at it and be like, let's build something way up there at the top. Like, we wouldn't put roads in where they put roads in. So one thing that the news doesn't show or doesn't talk about is the massive deforestation, the little microbursts they had. They just talk about the flooding and stuff, but these microbursts, like the tops of all these hills, it just looks like matchsticks. Just somebody took matches and dumped them on the ground, and the trees are just everywhere. So just massive deforestation, and these roads that are on these hills all have to be cleared. So we just played a little part. Like, there are thousands and thousands of these driveways and roads and houses that need to be cleared. We got a couple of the jobs. You know, we were down there for a week. We worked 5 of the days we were there. Yeah, so it was a great experience. We toured one half day. We toured Little Germany and Bumpus Cove. They're 2 of the more devastated places. Water rose 65 feet in some of those places, took out a 65-foot bridge. I guess there was a problem with one of the dams. They were supposed to do controlled releases, but they ended up releasing everything at once, and the billions of gallons are dumped. And the thing that they're not really talking about is there are these Superfund sites. So basically they dug out all these mines, and they're like, what do we put in these mines? Well, why don't we put waste in these mines? Well, all these mines flooded out. So all that pollution went up 65 feet and then came down and settled. So it looks like it snowed sand. It's like 4 feet of snow everywhere. They're plowing them, you know, skid steers and bulldozers, but it's all poison. And here these people are like trying to dig through it, looking for their belongings. Yeah, we had to, like, when we were down there, they made us wear rubber boots and masks and stuff. They're like, don't get into it. We didn't do any jobs down in those river valleys just because they weren't sure what was in there. Yeah, really sad. One person we got to speak to for about an hour, she and her husband had saved up for 15 years to buy a camper trailer. Or they had a 1960s style, like single wide trailer. They'd saved up for 15 years on like $671 a month Social Security. Finally bought a 2012 model. They moved it in. It was there for 2 days before it was completely destroyed. And that's just one story. And there's thousands and thousands of people like that. And everybody we talked to knew somebody that died. That was the other amazing thing to us. Everybody we talked to had a story about somebody that died, somebody their family knew. That lady I was just telling you about with her trailer, they tried to get their neighbor out, and he threatened them with the guns that I'm not leaving. And then they watched him get sucked under minutes later. The water rose so fast. So, and everybody had a story like that, which was very humbling. But for all the sad stories, there was just as many good stories. Like, we saw this one house, all the houses around it were destroyed, totally gone. But this one house was saved by a 4-inch in diameter tree, where all the trees backed up against it, and it stopped them from hitting the house. So it's just like, you see these, and then the neighbor helping neighbors. There was no politics involved. Nobody, was just people helping each other out because they needed it. That was really cool to see. That same day we talked to that lady, we talked to an old moonshiner. That's what he did. He lost his still and everything. He said, I lost my whole lifestyle, but he was down there helping a neighbor dig out a culvert. He didn't have shoes. He was barefoot, like walking around and stuff barefoot. Like, nope, I gotta help my neighbor get the culvert dug because it's backing up in there, you know. So it was just cool stuff like that. You saw a lot of. One guy had a sign up that said, if you see my house, could you tell it to come back? Like, they're making the best of it, you know, and everybody we talked to too said, could have been worse, could have been worse. I'm like, oh, could have been worse. No, really good, you know, the people we talked to had good attitudes about it. A very humbling experience. Glad we did it. A lot of work. We drove through the night and then drove back through the night. I'm still catching up, and that was a week and a half ago.
It's the first time I've ever seen John tired.
Yeah, no, I'm still tired. Yeah, no, we just like I said, we didn't know what to expect. We kind of just took a leap of faith and it worked out. It's cool. lot of volunteer groups. There's a lot of stuff in the media, like you don't know what to believe, what not to believe with all these conspiracies. But what I will tell you is the FEMA one was the big conspiracy that everybody talked about down there. And it's true that these volunteer groups were running them off. They weren't running them off with guns, but they were running them off because this is coming from the volunteer groups we talked to. FEMA was driving around in a caravan, a FEMA caravan, with a guy with a camera and a polo shirt. And they were stopping in front of these different like ministries and volunteer groups and trying to get video footage of them like making it look like it was their work. And so that's why they were getting run off. They weren't getting run off. But that's the reason why they were getting run off. Yeah, so. Any other questions? I won't waste any more of your time.
Well, I don't think it was a waste of
Oh, I
time
know,
at all.
it's not,
I
it's
think
not
it's
work related. So.
really important, but it is just really important because that's how, if you have a serious disaster, having lived through Sandy, it's organizations, it's people who, a lot of people in public service who actually do show up, even though you're in a whole
They-
different state.
The donations were amazing. So they used Bristol Motor Speedway to stage a lot of their donations. They figured they had $37 million just in bottled water that was donated. The whole underneath the stage, or yeah, I guess the bleachers at Bristol Motor Speedway, which is huge. They have, they're stacked 8 pallets deep, 5 pallets high bottled water that was donated. And I guess if you want to talk emergency prepping and whatnot, they were water, communications, and fuel. Those are the big ones. They were the first few weeks are pretty sketchy. But,
Thank you for your service.
Hey, John, I want to thank you for representing Waldeboro and
No,
the
absolutely.
people of the community
Oh,
and.
that's cool because I left a lot of Waldeboro PVD patches down there. every pop we came to or went by, we're like, "Hey, you want to trade patches? Want to trade patches?" There's a lot of Waldeboro PVD patches down there. It was cool. Good experience.
That's cool.
Yeah, if you get a chance to volunteer, it's rewarding. It did more for me than it did for those people. I know for sure. For sure. Good.
Good.
You're good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Citizens' comments. Anyone from the citizens like to comment? I'm sure.
Of course. Okay, this is for me, the last time that you're gonna hear about, this year, about the talent show. But I just want to thank everybody who participated in it. And Abden and Absentia. You guys really stepped up. And one of the most moving moments for me was saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Because everyone in the audience, and it was a full house, there were no seats to be had. Everyone stood up and I was in the audience and said the Pledge of Allegiance together. And it was very moving. And it was very much, it created what I wanted it to do, which was a sense that we are together, we're Waldeboro, we're all under one roof. And then the other thing I wanted to ask is there's a video, it's not done yet, but it's almost done, it's like that close, of the talent show. And how would the town feel if we could put it up on the website so everybody would have access to it?
That's a great idea.
Love it.
I have no problem with it.
Okay, great. The other thing I wanted to say is the speed signs are amazing. And to me, they are this exercise in everybody slows down. Like, again, we're all in this together. And we're all kind of wanting to do well by the town. And it's really, really cool. There was one other thing I was going to say, but I can't remember it. Thank you for your patience, gentlewomen, good gentlewomen and men.
Select board comments.
I had 3 things, then I wrote them down, so I would remember all 3. Just a, thank you to Pam, who's not here, and the rest of the crew who had a election, from my perspective, without complaint. Maybe there were some, but I didn't hear any feedback, and hearing no feedback means things went well, so well-organized group here. Congrats to Abden, who's not here to hear that from me. And then my third thing I had was that the talent show was a success. And so I could not be there. I was at a championship soccer game. But I heard all good things.
Thank you.
Mike?
I'm good.
I got three things. One, to thank Bill Maxwell for what he did on Veterans Day. Historical Society honors the veterans of this town, and he put together a very special program acknowledging his predecessor, Gene Lawrence. But it was so nice to be there and to participate in that event. Thank you. I don't need to say more about the talent show. It's all been said, and you can read the Lincoln County News. There's a great article in there about it, so it captures the spirit of it. And then we have the additional agenda items. So those are my comments.
Well, everyone's already talked about stuff I was gonna say, so, except for one thing, I just want to take a moment and some of you folks may have seen, we lost a important person in the community here on October 25th, Carl Waterman. Carl Waterman was Dr. Dick Waterman's son. Jack Waterman, Dr. Jack Waterman's brother, lifelong member of citizen of Waldeboro, a longtime member of the Waldeboro Fire Department. And I can recall when I joined the fire department, I don't know, long time ago, 2004. One of the first person to greet me was Carl Waterman. He was a lieutenant at the time. If I wanted to know something about a fire truck, that man knew it all. He certainly missed him on the fire department when he left the fire department, and seeing him walk around the town with his dog. And just wanted to let everyone remember him. That's all I have.
My report tonight is going to be about another person that we lost. Stan Waltz, our longtime code enforcement officer, passed away yesterday. And when you talk about a public servant, you could not find a better public servant than Stan Waltz. He served in the Vietnam War in the military. He was a Mason, member of the American Legion, and I don't know that I've ever met a more generous soul, to be very honest with you. And he had an excellent outlook on life. Happy, generous, loved talking to me about my grandkids. He was not just an employee, he was a friend, and he will be sorely missed. He was the first public servant that I talked to when I moved to Maine. He was working as the CEO in Damariscotta, and I called up and he said I had a New Jersey accent, and I definitely did. And I asked him about the property that we were buying, and he gave me the whole history of it. He was helpful and wonderful. And I went home and I told my code enforcement officer in New Jersey, who occasionally was a little gruff, that I met the most wonderful code enforcement officer in Maine, and that's the way it should be. But I just, when I drove in this morning, I was very sad, and I spoke with Lynn, his wife, and we shared some laughs a short time ago. But I have to tell you, it made me think I want to strive to be more like Stan. You know, he really was a gem of a man. I called him Stanley Super Ninja Code Enforcement Officer. I also called him Stan the Man. We lost a good one. And just men like that are few and far between, and he really was something. So that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, the consent calendar.
The election stuff you were.
Oh, yeah, I thought you knew that.
I got to stand.
You got, we'll share it. How about we'll share it?
We'll share. Go ahead.
I just, Beck talked about the election, and I want to thank Pam and all the workers, and it's amazing to see the number of folks that came out and voted here in the town of Waldeboro, week ago. And, even more interesting is, Pam was telling me they had 135 new registrations that day, new folks coming in to vote. And I was here a couple times throughout the day, and I didn't vote a couple times throughout the day. I just came in, I just stopped in. And especially after working hours, they just flowed in. And the folks in the ambulance bays, they did everything they do to get people through without any issues. And again, I didn't have any issues, and you have some stuff to add.
No, we really didn't have any issues. Having been here in 2020 and went through that, we had issues in 2020. We had no issues in 2024. I think they did. I will tell you that it was a phenomenal job by Pam and everybody who worked that day to keep things moving. We did have a lot of new registrations, and we also first-time voters. And then we also had a lot of first-time people to Waldeboro. So it just showed how many people showed up. And I think we were at a percentage. We had 369 voters, and I think our percentage was about 50 something. Maybe John has that.
67%.
67%. So that was a good turnout. But it really was a testament. We have to prepare for the worst, and we did, and everything turned out very well. You know, everybody, there wasn't, like you said, there were no complaints. The lines at first were long, people had lined up, but we tried to get people through as fast as we could. At one point, there were 2 of us doing new registrations to try to get people moving quickly, but everything went well.
And a number of folks that didn't realize they were registered, went to register, and they were already registered, but they hadn't voted in so
So
long.
long.
They forgot they even registered, but they were already in there.
The only thing that I would say we had any negative complaint about had nothing to do with the election, but everything to do with the fact that the Women's Club bakery sales were in this room instead of in the in the hall, in the actual election area. But at the same token, we do get complaints sometimes that it gets a little bit too noisy when people are complaining. So I do think this will be their permanent home. So we'll just have to remember, buy your baked goods before you go in, or just come back in and buy more.
Okay, consent calendar. Get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll second, but subject to our clarification on 17. I had a question about 17, which you are dealing with, so. I would, and you're still working on it, I understand, Peg, so
Warrant 17.
Warrant
warrant
17.
17,
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. so no need to go into it here.
All in favor? New business. 10.1, the Waldeboro capitalization policy. Your packet, you should have it.
This was a request by our auditor, and we have the amazing Peg Tynan here to answer any questions you may have.
I hate acronyms. Can you define what a GASB statement is?
Generally accepted accounting principle. Does it not say it on there?
It says GASB. That's all it says.
Oh, GASB. I
that's
always
the-
do it by GASB, honestly.
That's the government accepted principles, isn't it? GAS.
I thought it was
GASB.
generally.
I thought
That's
you were talking
GAAP.
about the other one.
That's
Okay.
GAAP. GASB is the one that applies to the government. But that is appropriate.
I know what the,
It's the Governmental Accounting Standards Board.
Thank you.
I know what the IRS is.
And it basically what this does, it establishes the requirements for capitalization of movable equipment and real property. which would be acquisition of land, buildings, fixed equipment, movable equipment, and machinery, vehicles, town roads, and renovation and improvement of existing real property owned or leased by the town of Waldeboro. Defines what capital, what a fixed asset is, real property, a unit.
And we didn't have anything like this before, obviously.
No,
We didn't have the
We didn't have the
policy.
policy.
We did it.
We
We
thought
just
we
didn't
did
have a
it.
policy.
Just so everyone understood.
Right.
Right, okay.
It just, it sets it puts the policy in writing. It's funny because we haven't had one in years, but this is what they came up with during the last one.
Any other questions on that?
I move acceptance of the policy.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Next, we have I think the street light topic with the 5G signal that Max is gonna talk to us about. This is more of an informational thing, correct?
Yes. So this is just more of an idea for the town. It's certainly out there on the, not perfect with what decisions are brought tonight. So at the Maine Municipal Association conference, going around, seeing all the different items that are there. There was an interesting idea that it's out there through the company Ubiquia, where they have attachments that can go onto streetlights that simply produce a 5G signal in a closer area to that location. It's something that's been used in Rumford for about the past year. And just a quick breakdown of how it works. If the town is interested in pursuing this, we would sign an agreement with Ubiquia to go out to the telecom companies, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, US Cellular, and say, do you have any interest in improving your 5G signal or cellular signal in Waldeboro? If they say yes, then we would receive some income every year based on the number of streetlights that are used. So if US Cellular says, well, we want to improve our service in Waldeboro, we want in on this, Ubiquia would deal with the paperwork and everything, and we'd receive about $30 per streetlight. That ends up having this radio attachment on it. We don't pay anything, we don't do anything other than just say, yes, we're interested. That's sort of the simple, straightforward way of saying it all. As I say, I think Rumford is the only one they keep talking about as the example they've had. Rumford's done this for about a year. They've had no issues. And I think York did sign on to this about in August, I think, if I recall correctly. And that's really it.
They don't put on every street light, do they?
Just the ones that they,
Where they
yeah,
think there's an
just
issue,
enough so that
to get the
it's-
coverage.
Yeah, just
Yep.
enough to spread out enough to get as many people as possible. I mean, streetlights are maybe what, 200 at most feet away, so if the 5G signal is something that can reach 400 feet, they're not going to do every single streetlight. They may
Right.
do one every 2 streetlights or so. And they'll probably focus on more high density areas, so it's likely going to be the streetlights in the village, which is the majority of our streetlights, maybe 80 or 90 streetlights, if I'm considering everything on Route 1 and the village, even going up Depot Street, that's the majority.
So it wouldn't help a lot of North Waldeboro where there is sketchy cell phone service.
If we decide to put some streetlights up there, then yes.
Don't we own streetlights out there in the outlying areas? Corner
We-
220
we-
and,
We own the area of the poles that allow streetlights to be on there. If we want more streetlights throughout town, we just have to put in a request to
Right.
CMP and then pay the fee.
and we
to do
pay
it.
the fee.
Yeah.
So I know that there's at least one up on intersection of 220 and Old Augusta and down on Friendship Road and Back Cove, there's one down there too. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly glad to always talk about that. And to anyone who's listening here, if there's a area that you'd like to see a streetlight, why not give me an email?
or we get better cell phone.
And get some better cell phone coverage as well.
I noticed there was a section on power consumption in there. I assume that the
They-
vendor pays for the electricity.
Yes.
How do they estimate it? Or do they actually meter it or what?
I believe they do work something out with CMP where it does get metered.
Okay. The other thing is, the existing internet providers, LCI, I guess LCI doesn't come in the downtown area, but Spectrum does.
LCI comes downtown.
This sort of encroaches on their business, because if you get free 5G, then you don't have to get a subscription from Spectrum.
Well, it's not like we're creating free Wi-Fi or anything. This is, I have my subscription plan and maybe I'm with US Cellular and I get my data from US Cellular and I'm on 5G, I'm using US Cellular's 5G program.
Okay,
That's what I'm paying for. I'm not getting free Wi-Fi in the downtown.
okay.
Bob?
And there's nothing to say they can't approach Spectrum to offer their people the same service, because Spectrum is everywhere in Waldeboro, unfortunately. I have some issues with, and we're not at that point yet,
Right.
but I don't like the fact that the agreement is subject to Florida law and is enforced in Florida's courts. There should be Maine law and Maine courts. They've made themselves responsible for equipment on the poles that is ours. But they haven't made themselves responsible for the equipment on the pole that belong to a third party. And that needs to be looked at. I forget which paragraph it was,
When
but
you're saying they have to be responsible for the equipment owned by a third party.
they have to safeguard that equipment. If they're going on a pole where a third party has equipment, they have to safeguard that equipment and be careful of it, not disturb it and all that stuff. But it only relates to our equipment, not to third party equipment. I misspoke there. Okay, that's so those are two things I was concerned about. I don't understand their business model. It makes no sense to me. I mean, they're generating revenue from these big guys who come in and say, we want to be part of this. You get it for free if you're using your phone to connect it, to tie into their network. Or maybe you're getting a surcharge because you're AT&T and you're in Waldeboro, and AT&T isn't big here, but they've got Spectrum using this 5G service. So you go through Spectrum and pay
No, like if I'm with US Cellular and I want to use US Cellular's 5G coverage, US Cellular is using that radio to get that 5G signal.
if
So
they're
it's
part
not
of, if they're part of the program that we're you're
They
proposing
would
here.
get the radio that's on top to emit that 5G signal.
Okay.
So rather than building this massive tower out in the middle of nowhere or launching a special little satellite, they just have that little radio that's going to be on top of our streetlight.
So they're saving capital expenditures.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing to say you can't deal with the carrier directly. You're dealing with a third party
Right.
to negotiate with the carrier
Yep.
for you.
Yep.
That's what you're doing.
And it does help our emergency services if we
It's
tie into it potentially.
that's windy out there.
Yeah.
It certainly helps just with coverage, although talking with Derek, he said, obviously there's a lot of spotty areas throughout town. So if we actually knew those spotty areas, we could probably get a street light and the 5G radio on there.
The other question I have, you talked about CMP streetlights. We actually bought and paid to have the streetlights in town put up there.
Yeah.
Those, in fact, because we did that, they're proposing this because we've got streetlights that are compatible with the equipment they want to put on them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So this isn't, we're not going to ask CMP to buy streetlights.
Nope.
Because they won't buy the kind we need to make this thing work.
No, so what I meant earlier was
Okay.
back in 2020, we did that agreement with CMP where we're saying we're owning the streetlights, we're taking care of the streetlights, we're responsible for that area, like just close to the top, which is where the streetlights would be put on. So that's kind of why towns like us get approached with this type of offer to say, you guys can just have your select board meeting, town manager, just sign this off and move on. Whereas if we have to go to a different town, we have to go through CMP, we have to do this, we have to do that. And just to note on your agreement and the issues you have there, that's part of why I wanted to talk tonight. If there is interest in doing this, we can certainly tell them we want amendments to the contract, like what you just said.
Okay.
But no point in me trying to ask for contract updates when you all may say, no, Max, what are you doing? It's a
Exactly
terrible idea.
So I think your question though about the business model is valid, because if they're paying us $30 a streetlight, what would a carrier pay where they're not paying the middleman? That would be my only
Yeah.
comment on it.
I was given some breakdown of like what FCC requires people to pay, and then if we have some additional equipment on the streetlights, usually that takes up a bit of amount, but because we don't have additional equipment beyond the streetlights, that's why we can get $30 because of that, but I don't remember the whole breakdown, to be honest. So I guess tonight is if this is just something I should continue going into a bit more, if I need to tell them, can you make some adjustments to the contracts, or if I should just.
Is this something that they approached us? Or was this something that you heard at that meeting?
It was something that I did here at the MMA convention, and the person who helped us with the streetlight conversion was also at the MMA convention and said, this is something you probably should be listening to.
Okay, do we have the population density that would give us more than 2 or 3 of these units?
That is what I would have to, that's what I don't know, and that's what Ubiquia, or we could probably reach to the cell phone companies ourselves if we'd like to, just to see if that's the case. I mean, they would likely be very interested in looking at the downtown. And that's why it really would range for how much we would get in income. If I'm thinking of just all the streetlights in town, that's about 112-ish that we have. If I'm discounting all the tiny pockets, like the 3 that are up at North Waldoboro, 2 or 3 that are over at the business park, ones that.
But I'll tell you, North Marlboro needs the coverage.
Oh, yeah, and I'm not discounting any of that, but I'm just saying
And the dip down by the bridge,
Yeah,
down in downtown.
and there's a dip down by 222, about 4 miles down.
right, I'm not discounting
Gotcha.
I'm not discounting any of that, I'm just saying with what the range for those
Yeah.
radios are and where they're focusing, I don't know if they're gonna aim for trying to get all the streetlights, and if that's the case, that's 100 streetlights times 30. Or if they were just gonna be strategic and pick like a few here and there, and then it's more like, I don't know, $300 a year, so I don't know.
So it's only $30 a year, not $30 a month.
We get $30 a year for the leasing agreement. And that's also with a one-time $100 per streetlight application fee. Again, that's all the numbers they gave me. We can always talk with them and we can explore ourselves.
How are they getting their signal? Are they getting it via cable or is it coming from one of the cell towers by radio?
I believe it's from the fiber.
We
I
don't
believe.
Well, we don't have fiber in
Yeah, we
in
LCI.
Waldoboro and the
In the village we do.
Village, we do.
all lit up.
In the village we do, yeah.
Yep.
And that's why Old Augusta Road would probably also work as well, because
They've
they'll have
got
fiber.
fiber.
But all that's kind of negated as well by next year, because we have the contract from, this is a more joyous thing, but we have our contract from Consolidated Communications saying that all of the fiber project that we keep talking about that the town approved to be in should be done by December of next year.
Right.
That's fast.
So the
Yes.
whole thing of fiber connection and everything is kind of moved by next year anyways.
So is this going to? Are we putting the cart before the horse until the fiber's taken care of?
I asked about that and they said no, because you could easily just, it's not even that long of a hookup process. I think it's more just administrative, going back and forth with towns, and then all that takes maybe 4 months. That's less time than it took to install all the streetlights when we said, go ahead and start installing the streetlights.
Would it hurt to double check with Xfinity or Consolidated to make sure they know what we're doing and
Oh,
don't
yeah.
have a problem with it?
Any questions from the audience? Real quick question.
So the purpose of this is to expand the cell phone coverage for people, correct?
Improving the cell and 5G signals, yeah.
Okay, so from my understanding as US Cellular, that's who I go through.
Mhm.
I've been approached by T-Mobile, who have said, and I've looked to try to verify through multiple resources that US Cellular has been bought out by T-Mobile, and that US Cellular actually uses T-Mobile towers. So as of the beginning of this coming year, US Cellular is no longer and T-Mobile is taking over. So that means T-Mobile is going to be in charge of all of serving US Cellular customers,
Mhm.
which is going to probably have some shift in how many towers and coverage would be my guess. Is that accurate?
I mean, yeah, These aren't meant to replace cell phone, these aren't gonna replace towers anytime soon. This is just trying to make sure that it can get to the areas where maybe the cell phone tower is just out of range. And it's trying to also serve a lot more people in a denser area. That's kind of the purpose of it. It's supposed to work in cooperation with all of them. So it's not replacing a cell phone tower or anything like that.
Mark?
Yeah, booster.
You just, and you probably are not aware, and I'm not sure who the carrier is. I can go back to my desk and look it up, but we did just get a upgrade permit for one of the cell towers up on Route 1. When they're adding new antennas up there. And I think, and don't quote me, but I think it's
think it was
T-Mobile.
I don't know Verizon.
Maybe it is Verizon.
Right.
I don't
People
remember.
keep
I can
adding
look
more,
it up.
people keep
What?
adding more antennas to that tower every week anyways. But the agreement is also valid if there is a telecom company that wants to do anything. If no one says they want to do anything, if they say, the towers in Waldeboro are good enough, we don't need to do anything, then the agreement's void at that time.
Right.
I think it's worth looking into.
Keep-
There's nothing to lose.
So keep looking at it, yeah. Nothing to lose, other than your time.
Yeah.
You got plenty of that.
Definitely much.
Thanks, Max.
I assume I should just stand up here for the next item.
Yes.
Fiber, yeah, we'll go 10.3. The Libra, I say that right?
Libra Foundation.
Foundation grant.
Yep. So Libra Foundation is a private charity organization out of Portland, Maine. They have grant rounds 4 times a year. And I simply want to put in a grant request. It's very similar to Stephen King Foundation, where I simply want to put in a grant request targeted at Sylvania to try and get a landscape architect as well as some yellow book appraisals so we can be prepared for the Land and Water Conservation Fund in June. And I need to have some signatures from the board of directors.
Okay.
Using other people's money. That's what he's good at.
Any questions? And the grant is due this week, so I need to make sure that sign this before you leave, or else we're waiting 3 more months.
Do you need a motion?
That would be great.
Yeah, I move we sign the application for the Libra Foundation grant.
Second.
No more discussion. All in favor? You'll get 5 signatures tonight.
Maybe 4.
Oh, 4,
Well, 4, because yeah,
yeah.
I'll leave that for you. All right. Now I'm all done, unless I'm needed for anything else.
Okay, 10.4, election ordinance approval for fireworks.
Just wanted to
Fireworks first.
just go over the fact that based on the election results, the consumer firework ordinance was amended to return to what it had been back in 2012. For a time, there was no fireworks in Waldeboro, and now there are fireworks allowed. I was going to give you the vote on that. So the fireworks vote was 1,803 yes, 1,187 no. So it was passed. And does anybody have any questions on the fireworks ordinance? The next one was our local food sovereignty ordinance, and yes is 2,647 to no 334. And unfortunately, Max left. The C-PACE ordinance was defeated 1387 to 1371.
And that surprised me.
yeah, so Max was heartbroken over
I
that.
think it was an education.
I think, yeah, I think it was
I
definitely
don't
an
understand
education
that. I
thing.
was-
It was all education.
And our
I like that.
shellfish, the shellfish ordinance, was yes, 2021. No, 709, and those were changes that were recommended by the state. And those were the outcomes of our local ordinance.
So we just have to add our signatures. There's no.
Yes, it's
Right.
pretty much done the day that they vote on it. And everything will be circulated in your to sign.
Okay, 10.5, the MRC vote. I'll let Bob, you know these folks. We got to vote on.
Okay, yeah, in September, I think on the 24th, we nominated Bell Ryder to the board of the MRC.
Correct.
There are 7 positions open. We're only allowed to vote for one of the 7 candidates for each of those positions. And because we nominated Bell Ryder to be on the board, I would recommend that we vote for her in this election. And I'd make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor for Bell Ryder? MRC,
You can sign.
I just gotta sign it.
Just check her name.
The only member would be Walter Town.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do this now before I forget.
There should be, typically there is.
You're on the
He's right, remarkably there is, unless there's a second, I'm back to that.
These are all bios.
I guess we'll just mark it and send it in.
Old business, traffic ordinance.
In your packet was the revised traffic ordinance. I didn't know if anybody had any more changes, any comments, anything they'd like to address, change, anything fun like that before we put it.
I've already given you my comments.
And I think I've incorporated everybody's comments that have given me comments in the past. We are now no longer describing areas of the roadway based on who lives there. We've made it by block and lot. So it's not by Jan Minzy's house, followed by somebody else's house.
We have to vote on this.
You haven't voted on it. I didn't know if you wanted to vote on it tonight. It's an action by you. It doesn't have to go to the voters.
Right.
It's something that you can do.
I'll make a motion to approve it as written.
I'll second.
Any more discussion on it? All in favor?
Thank you.
And we have old business 11.2 budget request letter approval.
So this is the budget request letter that the clerk Pam would like to send out to everybody. And this is just so people know all the agencies that request funding, what we are asking for in the future. We've never included, hey, this is what you should want, and you guys have added things, both the select board and the budget committee. They would like a copy of the most recently completed financial statements, including IRS Form 990, a program description, including type and level of services provided to the town of Waldoboro, the number of Waldoboro residents assisted each year, a list of towns contributing to your agency and the amount each has committed to providing, contact information, including email address, current bylaws, and any other information. And they have to be in by December 31st. That way they can definitely be included in the budget book. And it gives us time when we review it, if there's questions that the staff can then make sure you know what it is. I just needed to make sure everybody was.
Yeah, I think content is good, but maybe it's my old age eyes deceiving me.
No, it's
There's
a
an awful lot
lot
of
of fonts,
fonts and
yeah.
peculiar sizing going on. If,
Yeah, I'm not sure what's up with that, but I will let her know.
if that could be
Your eyes are
cleaned
better than
up,
mine.
like,
I'm sure it can be.
that would be perfect.
I noticed that as I was reading it. There's a lot of strange font.
Yeah, there's just half a dozen fonts and 6 different sizes of fonts and
I know we were having issues with the printer, but
Is this something she's gonna be sending out ASAP? It was due December
Yes.
31st. She's gonna get some phone calls, I'm sure, some questions on it. so.
Yeah. it is a little bit different. I mean, we have our ones that we know. Waldeboro Historical Society, we know every year but you know, we had a couple questions last year and I think they were valid to ask for information. We know the library, we know all these things, so.
Items for the next meeting.
And do you want to have a meeting? It is Thanksgiving week. I didn't know if anybody was away. Just make sure we have a quorum.
Abden's still away. Right,
I don't
He's-
know.
he's coming home
Okay,
that day. Late.
But Jefferson
So he
Street
won't be
doesn't
here.
want, they wanna wait till December,
I'm cool.
they wanna wait till December. though.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, they
Unless
wanna wait
something
till
comes up
December.
that was, you know, really emergency. I
Yeah.
doubt that'll happen.
they want to. They
we-
want to.
So we will not have a meeting. Day before, 2 days before Thanksgiving? Unless something comes up?
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Okay,
No meeting. Is that 26?
if something comes up, things may change.
Motion to adjourn the select board meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?